Testing, 1, 2. Whew. All right. Fair warning right up front. I'm probably going to be dropping some F-bombs in this video. That's just how I talk when I get all fired up. So if that's going to rattle your cage or make it hard for you to actually absorb what I'm trying to say, it might be best to just skip this one. But if you can handle me ranting, stick around, because I want to dive deep into something that has been bugging me, honestly. And disclaimer here, this is not medical advice. Doing this for educational purposes only, so talk to a clinician if you have symptoms or your labs are abnormal. Now, I've been seeing all this new info pop up, right? Posts, videos, random health clips talking about B12. And at first, I just brushed it off. But the more I saw, the more I thought, wait, what the heck is actually going on here? Some people are out here saying you don't need B12, or that it's all a hoax, or that your gut will just magically make it on its own, right? Others are saying everyone's deficient, even meat eaters, even people who supplement. And that's kind of got me doing a little double take, not gonna lie. And because if you're like me and you've been plant-based or raw for a long time, you've probably heard both sides a million times, right? So I decided to dig, like really dig. I've spent the last couple weeks collecting notes and reading studies and watching lectures and pulling from different voices, even from some of the ones that I don't necessarily agree with. And I just started compiling and writing everything down. So what you're about to hear is me basically going through those notes and the findings that I've got and just sharing them with you. Now, I'm not trying to pump the hype. I just want to share what I found with curiosity and a little skepticism. Because listen, I'm a hippie at heart, but I'm not out here trying to, play like health roulette and just roll the dice. And I'll tell you right now, if you're someone who's like me and likes to question things and who's not afraid to challenge the mainstream and the fringe, you might jive with this video. So grab a juice or a smoothie or whatever you're sipping on, and let's talk about B12, what it is, how it works, where the confusion started, and most importantly, how to figure out what's true for you. Because there's a lot of people throwing darts in the dark when it comes to this topic. And I want to make sure that you're not one of them. All right, so let's start with the basics, and I'll keep it simple. I want you to actually see how this stuff works in your body, because once you get the visual, it may stick a bit better. All right, so let's start from the ground up. What the hell is B12 anyway? B12, or cobalamin, if you all want to get sciencey, is basically a microscopic power plug, right? It keeps our brain charged, our nerves firing, our blood cells multiplying, and our DNA copying cleanly. It's one of those behind-the-scenes nutrients that never gets the spotlight until something goes wrong. So think of your body like a massive city, and B12 is the electrician that keeps the lights on, right? You don't notice him when everything is working, but when he skips work for a while, the power grid flickers, the traffic lights die, and the whole place starts acting weird. Now, when we don't have enough B12, that city starts brownouting, right? We get foggy, tired, anxious. We forget why we walked into a room. Our hands tingle. Our balance feels off. Our mood tanks. And here's the thing. B12 deficiency can creep up slowly, sometimes over years. So by the time we feel it, we might already be running on fumes. Now, the next question everyone's asking is, where do we get it? And this is where the myth soup starts simmering, right? People say animals make it. Nope, bacteria do. B12 is made of microbes, little soil, gut-dwelling bugs that used to live all around us and inside us before we bleached, chlorinated, and sanitized our world, right? Now, back in the day, we pulled carrots straight from the earth, right? We drank from streams. We got trace amounts of that bacterial B12. But modern life kind of killed that off, right? Like, now clean water is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But it also means we killed off a lot of the friendly microbes that used to gift us that amazing nutrient. So now we depend on supplements or fortified foods, whether we eat plants or animals. Now, even most meat eaters are basically getting secondhand supplements because like 80% of farm animals are given B12 shots or feed additives. So the whole vegans don't get B12 thing, it's a half truth at best. Most of us aren't getting it naturally anymore, but getting B12 into our mouth is only half the story. The magic or the mess happens in how we absorb it, right? So picture this. You eat something with B12 in it. It hits your stomach, and that's where it needs a big splash of acid, stomach acid, to release the B12. Then a special protein comes in called intrinsic factor. It swoops in like a mailman, right? It grabs the B12, stuffs it in an envelope, and delivers it down your small intestine for absorption. Now, if your stomach acid is low, that mailman can't even find the mailbox. And the whole delivery gets jacked up, right? So low stomach acid is a huge problem these days. Why? Stress, processed food, and especially acid-blocking meds. Those PPLs, the proton pump inhibitors like Prilosec and Nexium. They're meant to reduce the stomach acid, but they end up turning your stomach into like a lazy river instead of a volcano. So if you've been on those meds for months or years, or you've been under chronic stress, your digestion might be too weak to even extract the B12 from your food or your supplements. Let me paint this picture. It's like throwing a dinner party and forgetting to unlock the door, right? You've got all this amazing food, your nutrients, but no one can actually get inside. They're just standing on the porch, knocking while you're wondering why your guests never showed up. And that's what low stomach acid does to your nutrition game. And the intrinsic factor, that little mailman I mentioned, he's made by cells in our stomach, in the lining. So if our gut's inflamed or we've got autoimmune stuff going on, that mailman might be out like on a sick day, right? No deliveries, no B12 reaching our bloodstream. So when people say, oh, I eat plenty of B12 rich foods, I'm fine. I'm like, maybe, but do you actually have the acid and the mailman to process it? I love the saying, what gets measured gets managed, right? We can't just guess. We've got to look under the hood. We've got to test the levels, and we got to know where we're at. All right. Now that you've got the picture in your head, let's talk about what happens inside our body once that B12 finally makes it through the door, and why some people can't even use it once it's in there. This is where the methylation process comes in, and where that sneaky little MTHFR, the motherfucker gene, makes its entrance. Okay, before we get into the methylation and all the science stuff, let's rewind a little bit, because some of y'all might be thinking, wait, when did humans even start talking about B12? Who came up with this shit? Right? Was it cooked up in some lab just to sell us bottles of supplements? And that's totally a fair question, one that I've asked myself. So here's a little story, and it goes like this. Back in the 1900s, the early 1900s, we're talking like the 20s and 30s, there was a brutal, deadly condition called pernicious anemia. People were literally wasting away. They were becoming weak, pale, short of breath, experiencing brain fog and nerve pain. Doctors had no clue why. It was a mysterious disease that slowly starved our blood and our brain of oxygen. Then in 1926, a couple of researchers figured out something incredible. If they just fed these patients raw liver, they got better, like dramatically better. And that discovery won them the Nobel Prize, right? And then later, these scientists isolated that exact compound from the liver that was saving people's lives. And that turned out to be what they call B12, or what we now call B12. So no, it didn't come from Big Pharma's money machine. It came from desperate doctors trying to save dying humans long before supplement companies even existed. So B12 was discovered, not invented. Now, over the years, researchers learned how to produce it outside of the liver using bacteria, not chemistry. Because that's the thing, B12 is made by microbes, not plants, not animals. Bacteria are the real manufacturers. And thank goodness we figured this out, because I don't want to eat liver from fucking dead animal corpse just to get my B12 levels up. If it's down, I'll gladly take a supplement. So when you hear people say, well, if it's not in nature, we shouldn't need it, they're missing the plot, right? It is in nature. It's just that our modern world scrubbed a lot of it away. Right? Back in the day, people got trace amounts from unwashed produce, from the creek water, the dirt on the roots, different animal sources possibly. And now we triple rinse everything in chlorinated water and sanitize our food system, right? And all that's amazing for preventing disease and bacterial infection, but it's terrible for preserving these bacterial nutrients like B12. And that's why deficiency rates skyrocketed in vegans, raw foodists, even meat eaters, because this stuff is it's just not in our sanitized world like it used to be. So when someone says B12 is a scam, I say, tell that to the people who were dying of anemia back in 1920s, right? And then they come back to life when the doctors figured this shit out, right? That's not a fucking hoax. That's history. If you want to see the receipts, I dropped the links below, the full paper trail from what I found from the 1920s liver cure to Dorothy Hodgkin's Nobel Prize winning work in the 50s, right? Like real science, not influencer memes. You can literally read the progression from weird fatal anemia to liver cures dogs, to the human trials, to the isolation of the molecules, to the X-ray crystallography, right? Like it's all there. Check those links if you want to geek out. Now, do the supplement companies make money from it? Fuck yeah, they do. That's capitalism. But let's not confuse capitalism with the compound itself. Saying B12 is fake because someone profits is like saying water is fake because it's sold in bottles. All right, and while we're at it, let's talk about the book thing. Anyone can self-publish a book now. Anyone. You, me, fucking neighbor's cat. Doesn't mean it's pure truth. Now there's one floating around, the "Did nature make a mistake" angle. Totally catchy title, but dangerous thinking. Nature didn't make a mistake. We just changed the environment. And thinking we're somehow less pure for taking a supplement? No, man. We're not failing nature. We're just adapting to modern life. Now, people have literally fried their nervous systems clinging to that "I'm too pure to supplement" mindset. You can eat the cleanest, rawest, most vibrant food on the planet, but if you're running on fumes, your nervous system doesn't care how fucking organic your smoothie is. Purity isn't the goal. Optimum function is. So yeah, that's where B12 came from, a life-saving discovery that bridged nature and science. Now, let's get into actually how it works in the body, the methylation process, the motherfucker gene, and why some people just can't make that conversion happen. All right, now we're stepping inside the body's machine shop, the methylation factory. Methylation sounds fancy, but think of it like the body's master on and off switch, right? For hundreds of processes, detoxing, balancing hormones, stabilizing your mood, creating energy, even regulating which genes get flipped on or off, right? So picture like a factory with a conveyor belt and workers are passing packages down the line. When methylation's running smoothly, every worker knows their jobs, right? Toxins get neutralized, neurotransmitters get made, new cells get built, and everything just hums along in rhythm. Life just works. But if one worker is missing or a key machine jams, the whole line slows down. And that's what happens when your B12 is low or inactive. B12 is like the spark plug that keeps the factory humming. Without it, belts stall, half-finished boxes pile up, and the production grinds to a freaking crawl. And that's when you start feeling foggy, anxious, sluggish, maybe even depressed. Your factory's lights are on, but nobody's moving. And if you want to go full nerd, the biochem details are all in the studies that I linked. All right, now, so B12 runs two main reactions in our bodies, methionine synthesis and methylmalonyl CoA mutase. Now, those are the pathways, and they're literally like the wiring diagram for our detox, energy, and nerve health. Now, I've got the PubMed and food and nutrition research papers down below if you want to see the exact enzyme maps. It's pretty interesting stuff. Now, here's where it gets wild. There's this gene called MTHFR, which stands for methylene tetrahydrate folate reductase. Fucking names we come up with, right? I call it the motherfucker gene because honestly, that's what it is. The MTHFR gene is basically the manager of our methylation factory, the boss that tells our system how efficiently it can process and activate vitamins like B12 and folate. And when that gene's working well, everything just hums right along. When it's not, we can be eating B12 or even taking certain supplements and still not actually using them. And here's the thing. A ton of people have a variant of that gene. Some estimates say almost 40% of the population has at least one copy that makes methylation sluggish. That means their factory's running on partial power. The lights are flickering, right? Production's slow and everything's low. The energy's low, which would make sense why coffee is one of the most sold commodities in the world, because so many out there are struggling for energy on a daily basis. Now, when the gene's running well, the belts are moving fast, the toxins are getting packed up and shipped out, our neurotransmitters are firing, you feel good, right? It's like trying to fix an engine, though, with like a half a wrench set missing. You can tighten a few bolts, but the machine's never going to run smooth. That's why I always tell people to go for a methylcobalamin. It's already methylated, already active, no conversion needed, no waiting for that MTFR manager to show up with the right tool, right? So think of it like this. Cyanocobalamin, the cheap synthetic form of B12, is like buying whole carrots and having to peel and chop them yourself, right? Methylcobalamin is the pre-chopped, ready-to-use version. Saves time, saves energy, gets the job done. Because if our methylation system is lazy, or if we've got that motherfucker gene, the MTHFR, we want to make it as easy as possible for our cells to do their job. And honestly, the way I see it, even if we don't have that mutation, methylcobalamin is still the cleanest, most efficient form of B12. We're skipping the middleman, handing our body the finished product instead of the raw materials. So yeah, almost 40% of people are walking around with some version of that variant. That's a lot of jammed up factories out there, right? And methylcobalamin is our shortcut, our ready to go spark plug. Even if our body's missing a wrench, the engine still turns over. When methylation's firing on all cylinders, our detox pathways are open, our hormones balance, our focus sharpens, and our energy feels clean. We're not just alive, we're running smooth, tuned, charged, and clean burning, like a well-oiled engine finally roaring back to life. Now let's talk about testing, because what gets measured gets managed, right? If you're curious where your levels are, don't just grab a random supplement and hope. Test first. The basic test most doctors run is a serum B12, right? But that only tells us what's floating around in our bloodstream. It's not what's actually getting into the cells. It's like checking how hydrated we are by just looking at our water bottle instead of checking to see if we actually drank any, right? So if we really want to know how our cells are using B12, we ask for the methylmalonic acid test, the MMA, or homocysteine levels. Those tell us how our cells are actually using B12. High MMA or high homocysteine equals low B12 function. Even if our serum B12 looks fine, if our stomach acid's low from stress, aging, or meds like the PPLs, that's the proton pump inhibitors, the heartburn meds that nuke your acid, our absorption tanks. So low stomach acid is like throwing a dinner party, but forgetting to unlock the door. The food's there, but nobody can get in. So if we're supplementing, but still tired, foggy, or anxious, our body might not be absorbing it properly. And this is where we've got to stop the detox gaslighting. And to go on a little side trail here real quick, maybe you're not really sure what gaslighting even means, right? So let's break it down for a quick sec here. Here's 3 types of gaslighting. There's general gaslighting. This is your classic, you're overreacting, or that never happened kind of manipulation, right? It's emotional control disguised as logic. Someone invalidates your experience so they can stay right, and you start second guessing what you know is true. Then there's spiritual gaslighting. This one hides behind love and light. It sounds like, you just need to raise your vibration. Or, if you were more aligned, you wouldn't feel that way. It's when someone uses spiritual language to dismiss real emotions or struggles. Instead of empathy, you get enlightenment splained, right? And then there's the health and nutritional gaslighting. And this one's everywhere. It sounds like you must be detoxing, or you're not doing it right. Or if you just committed harder, you'd feel amazing. Basically, it invalidates your body's feedback and replaces it with guilt. Like when someone says, I've been raw vegan for X amount of years and I feel great. So if you're struggling, it's your fault. That's nutritional gaslighting. It's manipulative because it implies your struggle isn't real, or worse, that it's proof of your weakness or impurity. Now, some people try to shame you for supplementing, saying you're brainwashed, but that's just another form of manipulation. Fear of being fooled. Don't buy it. Look, there's always going to be some people saying, I've been raw for however many years, no supplements, and I'm fine. That's awesome. But just because you feel good doesn't mean you're biochemically balanced. B12 deficiency can take years to show. And when it does, it's often too late for a quick fix. So don't do it out of fear, and don't skip it out of pride, right? Do it because you understand the science. And the problem is when someone says, I've been raw vegan for X amount of years and I feel fine. No deficiencies, no supplements. It can come off like their personal experience should automatically be your roadmap. But biology doesn't work like that, right? We can't universalize our success story and call it truth. That's not education. That's projection. And that kind of thinking is dangerous because out there, someone's watching that video and trying to live up to it. And maybe they've tried the same thing, started struggling, their B12 tanked, and before long, they're eating raw animal liver to regain their health from something that could have been easily remedied. All because they thought they failed where someone else succeeded. There's a big difference between sharing our journeys and prescribing our journeys, right? Once we start saying, this worked for me, so it'll work for you, we've crossed into that dogma territory where curiosity dies and shame can take over, right? Just because someone thrived on coconuts and sunshine doesn't mean everyone else will. Some people tried that and fell apart, not because they were weak, but because they're not them, right? So saying, I'm fine without B12 is one thing, but saying you don't need it either is another. That's not empowerment. That's arrogance dressed as advice. Here's a real big problem. Fear sells. Whether it's fear of deficiency, fear of disease, fear of being wrong, it keeps people buying, following, and clicking, right? Even the people who scream, don't be brainwashed, are selling you their version of certainty. It's all the same currency, fear. Real health doesn't gaslight you. Real health empowers you to listen to your body, your energy, your truth. The moment someone tries to convince you that your experience is wrong because it doesn't match theirs, that's your cue to step back. That's not guidance. That's control. The raw and natural hygiene communities sometimes tell people, oh, that fogginess or fatigue, that's just detox. And although that's a possibility, sometimes that's just our nervous systems begging for some fucking B12. We can't detox our way out of a deficiency. We can't spiritualize our way out of a missing nutrient. We have to measure so that we can better understand and manage and nourish properly. And because I know someone's already scrolling to comment, bro, show me the studies. They're all below. Meta-analysis, intervention trials, case reports, real people, real biomarkers, real recoveries. Vegans and raw plant-based folks constantly show lower B12 and higher homocysteine when unsupplemented, right? It's not an opinion. That's data. I linked PubMed and Science Direct studies that literally track that shift when people started supplementing, right? And you can read them for yourselves. I don't need you to take my word for it. That's the whole point of this video. All right, so by now you might be thinking, okay, so how the hell do I actually know where my B12 levels are at? And here's the truth. Guessing isn't enough. You can't know by just how you feel, right? Like I said, what gets measured gets managed, remember? So the first step, get tested. Now there's a few different ways you can do it depending on how you roll, right? If you've already got a doc that you vibe with, awesome. Go ask them for these 3 key markers. Serum B12, that's the basic one that tells you what's floating around in your bloodstream. Then there's the methylmalonic acid test, the MMA. This one tells you if the B12 is actually doing its job inside the cells. If your MMA is high, your cells are starving, even if your blood, your serum looks fine. Then there's the homocysteine. This one's the smoke alarm for your methylation system. High homocysteine usually means your detox and repair systems are backed up. Those 3 together paint the real picture. But let's be honest, a lot of people in this community don't vibe with the medical system. And maybe they don't even have a primary care doc. I don't blame them. But the good news is you can order direct-to-consumer lab tests or even do at-home kits that'll ship right to your door. Now, quick reality check, some of those home kits are actually mail-in labs, right? So you're going to prick your finger, collect a few drops or pee in a cup, and send it to a CLIA certified lab and get your results back in like a week or two. Now, the key word is CLIA certified, which means that meets the real lab standards, not some shady biohacker garage setup. And here's the deal. For MMA and homocysteine, finger stick and urine tests can be decently accurate, but if your numbers come back weird or borderline, just go confirm it with a full blood draw, because if you're low and you catch it early, you can fix it fast. But if you let it slide for months or years, you can end up with nerve damage that's hard, sometimes even impossible to reverse. So please, for the love of your future self, test, measure so you can manage. Don't play guess and check with your nervous system. If you're plant-based, raw vegan, or fruitarian, I'd personally suggest testing at least once a year, because this isn't like a set it and forget it nutrient. Your levels can drift, right? And to make sure it's easy for you, I linked every one of those testing options that I could find below in the description. You can literally click and order and take control of your data today. Now, I'm not affiliated with any of this stuff, right? And once you get the results, you can manage intelligently, supplement, track, retest. That's empowerment. That's not dependence. Now, I want to bust out and go through a few of the questions that I have been getting in my DMs lately, probably because of some of this content. And I wanted to share them with you here because these might be some that you hear as well, right? Number one would be B12 is just a scam. We make it in our gut. Totally fair. Yeah, our gut does make it. Some B12, right? But the issue is where? We make it in the colon, the large intestine, but we absorb it in the small intestine above the colon, right? So it's kind of like growing our food in the backyard, but our kitchen's locked from the outside, right? Or even better, like it's like growing microgreens in a closet with no light. You're doing the right thing, just in the wrong place. Nature's incredible, but it's not perfect. And that's why even animals outsource B12 from bacteria in soil or their diet, or they eat their own poo, like rabbits do. Number two is the deficiency symptoms are vague. It's all psychosomatic. Yeah, the list of B12 symptoms can look like a freaking WebMD fever dream, right? Fatigue, brain fog, tingling, depression, you name it. That's why I always say, don't self-diagnose, just go test yourself, because B12 is easy to measure. Serum, MMA, homocysteine, right? Numbers don't lie. Fear does. And number three would be, I've been raw X amount of years, no supplements, and I feel amazing. I love that. That's great. Some people can go years without any issues. It's shown that our body stores B12 in the liver, sometimes enough for 5 or even 10 years. But that doesn't mean we're immune to it. It just means that our tank hasn't run dry yet, right? Feeling good doesn't always mean your biochemistry is optimal. That's why we use data, not vibes. Another one is B12 is made by soil bacteria, so just eat dirty veggies. In theory, yes, soil microbes do produce B12. The problem is our soil today isn't the same as the ancient soil, right? It's been stripped, sprayed, and sanitized. Plus, washing our produce protects us from E. coli and parasites. Not exactly a fair trade in a way, so supplementing isn't anti-nature. It's just a clean workaround for a modern problem. And the supplement industry is just manipulating us. I've got that a couple times. And I totally get the distrust. The supplement industry does overhype things, but the molecule itself, That's biology. B12 is made by bacteria, not billionaires. You can be anti-industry and pro-health. Those aren't opposites. Now, another thing that comes up a lot, and this one always makes people pause, is the claim that B12 has cyanide in it. So what's that about? Well, the most common synthetic form of B12 is called cyanocobalamin. And yeah, technically it does have a cyanide molecule attached to it. But before we freak out, let's get real. The amount of cyanide we're talking about is microscopic. Our body easily detoxifies it. We're talking about less than what we'd get naturally from eating almonds, flax, or even certain fruits. Like, we'd literally get more cyanide breathing city air. The reason that they use cyanocobalamin is because it's stable. It's cheap, it stores well, but it's not the only form of B12 out there, and that's where things can get interesting. Right? So what's the difference between methylcobalamin and cyanocobalamin? And why would you pick one over the other? This is a great question because these two get compared a lot. Methylcobalamin is the natural active form of B12 that our body already knows how to use, right? It's the version our cells use for things like protecting our nerves, building DNA, and supporting the methylation process. That's our body's internal detox gene expression system, right? And now cyanocobalamin, on the other hand, is a synthetic form. It doesn't occur in nature. It's made in labs because it's stable, affordable, and great for shelf life. Now, the cyano part refers to a cyanide molecule bound to the B12 core. But again, it's not dangerous in that form. Our body just has to convert it, right? It has to convert cyanocobalamin into the active form methylcobalamin and adenylcobalamin, and before it can actually use it, right? And most people do that just fine. But some people, especially those with the genetic variation that affect the methylation, like the MTHFR gene, they don't convert it efficiently. So in that case, it makes more sense to take methylcobalamin. It's already plug and play, no conversion required. Cyanocobalamin, your store brand multivitamin, works fine, built in a lab, no frills, but methylcobalamin is your cold pressed juice, right? Pure bioavailability, straight to the bloodstream. Now, cyanocobalamin and methylcobalamin are just 2 out of the 4 main forms of B12 that you'll see in supplements or in the body. Now, let's break those down real quick. Cyanocobalamin, right? This is the synthetic form that we just talked about. It's the cheap one. It's got shelf stable. It's, most common in supplements and fortified foods. But your body has to convert it to the active form before you can use it. Now, despite the scary cyano name, the cyanide molecule is harmless in the tiny amount present. Number 2 is methylcobalamin. This is one of the active forms your body uses directly. It supports the nerve function, the brain health, and the methylation, which impacts everything from detox to your mood, right? It's less stable than cyanocobalamin, but better absorbed by some people. Now, the adenylcobalamin, this is the other active form used mostly in our mitochondria, our body's energy factories. It plays a key role in energy metabolism, helping convert fats and proteins into usable energy. And then number 4 would be the hydroxycobalamin. This is the one that's most used in medical injections, like a B12 shot, right? It's more slowly released, sticks around in your tissues a little bit longer. And fun fact, it's actually used as a treatment for cyanide poisoning because it can grab and neutralize the cyanide molecules. Now, the takeaway here, every form has its pros and cons, right? Cyanocobalamin wins for cost and stability. Methylcobalamin and adenylcobalamin are biologically ready to go and maybe better for people with the conversion issues, right? That motherfucker gene that I was talking about. Then there's the hydroxycobalamin that lasts longer, often used in the clinically, like the injections we were talking about. But at the end of the day, you don't need to stress over which form is best. What matters is that you're actually getting enough B12, especially if you're eating a plant-based or raw diet, where natural sources are limited. Because let's be honest, even most of the animals people eat are getting B12 from their supplements or the feed additives that they give to the animals, right? So you can skip the middleman or the middle cow and just take it yourself, right? So if you're into the evidence, I'm going to link a couple dozen, real world studies, medical case reports showing what can happen when long-term vegans or vegetarians don't supplement with B12. None of this is made up. These are clinical records. You can read yourself. There are documented cases of lifelong vegans, even athletes and parents, developing numbness, weakness, or cognitive fog simply because they ignored B12 for too long. And the crazy part, within weeks of restoring it, they came back online, right? That's not fear. That's evidence of how crucial this molecule really is. The bottom line is that B12 deficiency isn't about labels. It's about biology. It can affect anyone, vegan, vegetarian, or meat eater, depending on absorption, gut health, or the genetics, right? The key isn't fear. It's awareness. So here's where we land. Our health is data and decisions, not dogma. We don't have to worship Western medicine or burn our lab coat and live off of sunbeams and retreat to live in the forest somewhere. You can stand in the middle, aware, curious, sovereign. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be present. Learn your body, love your body, build your body. That works. You can be spiritual and skeptical, scientific and soulful. It's not about being pure, it's about being functional. So if you've been guessing, stop guessing. Just go test. If you've been scared you're broken, you're not broken. You're just underfueled. Plug the gaps, light the spark plugs, and watch your system come alive. And if this video hit home, share it, because there are too many people walking around dimmed down by a deficiency they don't even know they have. Imagine how many lights we could switch back on if people actually understood their wiring. Now, I'm not pulling this out of thin air. Like I've said, all the original studies, the Nobel Prize write-ups, the Mayo Clinic history, and the modern vegan deficiency research are all linked below. So if you're skeptical, good. Go look. I want you to fact check me, because we don't need blind faith in big pharma or blind faith in nature. We need informed humans who actually check their sources. That's real sovereignty. The deeper I go into this lifestyle, the more I realize health isn't about control. It's about humility. It's about listening to your body, to nature, to the data, and realizing we're not above biology. We're a part of it. We're not gods of nutrition. We're guests in a very complex system. Whew. Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying curious. Keep your smoothies cold and your greens vibrant and your bullshit detector on high. I'm Nate. This was my B12 rant. And remember, what gets measured gets managed. And yeah, if you've made it this far, go drink some water, call your cells to say thank you, and we will see you on the next one. Love you.